Muted. Okay, we're back. Sorry. All the confusion getting things going. Sorry, I was muted. Hey guys, welcome to the open mic. Good to have you here. I'm a little bit frazzled getting things going here because as I was getting ready to start the live stream here, I got the notification that the report has come out that at the upcoming Cinemacon, you know, we go to Cinemacon every year. They just announced, and I already knew that, you know, there's going to be 4 screenings at Cinemacon. I mean, there's going to be a ton of movies coming up for this year that they're going to show us like 10 minutes of it or 15 minutes of it, but there's going to be 4 full screenings from what I understand. I knew one of them was going to be Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So there's that. I've got some theories about what a couple of the other ones, but what I did not know that just came out, I think it's Deadline that's reporting it. It's either Deadline or Variety is reporting it. They just reported that Flash is going to be screening like a month and a half before the movie comes out. They're going to be screening Flash at Cinemacon. So what I decided to do is that, you know what, normally I don't register for Cinemacon until the beginning of April, but I thought, you know what, if they're going to show Guardians, and I'm not 100% sure they are, but I'm pretty sure they are. If they're going to show Guardians 3 and The Flash at Cinemacon, I probably should register for it right now. I should probably register for that like right now. So, and I went ahead and did that. I went ahead and registered. So I'm all set. I'm ready to go. We've got all of our stuff ready to go. I'm all set, ready for Cinemacon. You know, Cinemacon is my favorite thing to go every year. It is my absolute favorite thing to go to every single year. I love going to Cinemacon. I like it more than Comic-Con, all that kind of stuff. It's industry only, but it's always like we get the best stuff because like for you guys who watch us, you know, that's like every day we reference something that happened at this past Cinemacon or even the one before that. We're able to talk like a movie's coming out and it's like, yeah, a year ago, they showed us 10 minutes of this and we're able to talk, like they give us like a year's worth of stuff to talk about at every single Cinemacon. So, this year sounds like it's going to be real good. I mean, last year was fantastic too. So, very, very excited about that. Very, very excited about that. A lot of fun. Okay. So, anyway, guys, now that I got all that out of the way and we are finally up and running, again, sorry for the delay, everybody. Let's get over and do what we are here to do, which is to take your live comments and questions, shall we? And we are going to start things off with, who are we starting with here? We are starting with Dominic Suma. And Dominic Suma writes, is your beef with Disney just from D23 stuff and the Disneyland anniversary fiasco, or are there other things playing into that we aren't aware of? No, I mean, listen, look, I don't have beef with Disney. I just don't think very highly of them right now. And yeah, the Disneyland fiasco, look, when you rip me off of money, I'm Italian, man. I take that very personally and I hold on to that a lot. So the Disneyland fiasco was the one thing. The D23 fiasco was another thing where they literally cost me thousands of dollars. So there was that. And ever since Bob Chapek took over the company, I just think they've made a lot of really dumb decisions. So yeah, my estimation of Disney has dropped a lot, as a result of that stuff. Now, Bob Iger's back, and I'm very, very hopeful that the company can turn things around, but we will see. We will see if that happens or not. All right. Next up, we've got Kara Black, who pins in like a $20 super chat. Thank you, Kara. Appreciate that. Overall, Quantumania isn't horrible, but it's a far cry from past MCU media. I found the ending of the film to be very jarring also. Personally, it's the worst MCU film / show, but the 2 post-credit scenes were very fascinating. Yeah, listen, again, we're not going to go into any spoilers of it here right now, but you know, and I'm with you. I didn't think Ant-Man and the Wasp was horrible. I didn't think it was trash, and I don't think it's the worst MCU film. It's down near the bottom for me. But I don't think it's the worst one. I think there have been a couple that have been worse. You know, Iron Man 2, Thor Dark World. Maybe that's it. I like most Marvel movies, but at any rate, yeah, it's just lower tier for me again. And that's kind of been a truth of just the Marvel content lately, right? Like we talked about it before that from 2016 to 2019, there's a string of like a dozen movies straight where we're just all awesome, 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 awesome. Every single one was awesome. Now, when I go in to watch a Marvel movie or TV show, it's like a coin toss. Maybe I'll like it, maybe I won't. You know what I mean? And we're just not used to that. We're not accustomed to that sort of thing. Hold on a second. I'm just getting, text from the wife. Probably 6. Okay. Hold on, I just can tell her. Live right now. There. Sorry. Like I would put off getting back to anybody else when I was talking to you guys, but when the A Cakes calls, or an A Cakes, also known as Ann, when she texts, you respond to that right away. Anyway. Okay. There's that. Thank you so much for that, Karen. Thank you for supporting our channel on that level. All right. Oh my goodness. We already have way too many super chats. So I'm going to turn off, I'll give you guys a warning. I'm going to turn off super chats in like 1 minute. Okay. I'm going to turn off super chats in like a minute. All right. Next up, we got John Redcorn who writes, do you think Silk and Spider-Man Noir shows will tie into the larger Sony/Venomverse, or will they both be standalones? My guess is they will tie in. Now, the Spider-Man Noir one, that one has a bigger chance of being standalone because, again, I think they said it's going to be set in like the 1920s or 1930s or 1940s, something like that. So that one has a larger chance, I think, of being standalone. But as far as Silk, my guess is, I have no insider information on this. This is just my guess, but my guess is it will tie in. That's my guess. All right. Cinema Reviews writes, reports say people walked out of test screening for Aquaman 2. If you believe that shit, you probably still believe in Santa Claus. Of course they walked out. What else could they have done when the movie was over? Yeah, listen, I've told you guys many, many times, whenever you see news stories about test screenings, don't believe it. Unless it's the director of the film or the studio of the film talking about test screenings. Whenever that happens, 100% don't believe it, because there are a bunch of reports that came out today about, oh, the test screenings of Aquaman 2 went terrible. Remember on the show just a couple of months ago, there were reports from leaks from test screenings say the test screenings for Aquaman 2 were amazing. I said, don't believe that then. Don't believe it now. Now, I have heard from studio sources, as have others like Jeff Snyder, heard that Aquaman 2 might be in trouble, but don't believe the Aquaman 2 test screenings went great reports, and don't believe the Aquaman 2 test screen and this whole bullshit that people walked out of test. Don't believe that shit. Don't never, ever, 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 ever believe that stuff. Okay. Where are we at here? Next up, hold on a second, I just got to turn super chats off. There we go. Okay, next up. We've got Mike's Movie Madness, who writes, hey, John, longtime member here. Thank you for being a member, Mike's Movie Madness. I love being a member, and I know you've been trying to do more for us members, and I had an idea. Maybe once or twice a week, you can do a members-only open mic, where the first half you can read off the free member chats, and the second half you take live questions either through super chats or a community post. You can even call it members only. Well, here's the thing about that, Mike. And first of all, Mike, thank you for being a channel member. We appreciate that amazingly. What we are already doing a couple of times a week is on the John Campea Show. Instead of taking like today, on today's episode of the John Campea Show, instead of taking super chats, we just take questions from the members, right? So we're already kind of doing something like that. We're several times a week, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. In lieu of doing super chats in the second part of the John Campea Show, we just take chats from our members. And on top of that, we're now trying to at least twice a month. We're going to try to bump it up to 3 times a month, doing a members town hall meeting where I give you guys know in previous town hall meetings we've been doing, I've been letting you guys know about developments or changes, or I try to let you guys know about what's going on with the channel in advance of letting everybody else know about it. So we're already trying to do stuff like that a little bit. And we will always continue to try to find new ways to make being a channel member. I mean, first of all, we know you guys are just channel members just to support the channel, and we appreciate that greatly. We do. But we still want to try to find ways to show our appreciation for you guys being channel members by adding even more value into it for you guys. So we're starting it with member chat only town hall meetings or member only town hall meetings. A couple times a week on the John Campea Show, only taking questions from our channel members. So, and we're going to continue to try to develop from that. We've got a few ideas moving forward, but we'll tell you guys more about that later. Anyway, thank you again, Mike, for being one of our channel members. All right. Mr. Graham91 writes, do you remember in Ant-Man 2 when Janet had powers when she came out of the quantum realm? Because I do. I'll be honest with you. I like Ant-Man 2, but it's been a beat since I watched it, and I don't remember that. You're probably right. I'm not saying you're not right. You are probably right. I'm just saying right now I don't remember it because it's been a beat since I watched it. But I think I've heard others say that too, Mr. Graham. All right, Hung Vu writes, when can I ask a spoiler question about Avatar? Also, it's my 25th birthday. Happy birthday to you, Hung Vu. Gonna watch my favorite trilogy ever, the Ocean's movies. I would say we're always, we play that one movie by movie. Sometimes we would have, like back in the movie blog days, I used to have a kind of a rule that when the movie comes, wait until the movie completes its theatrical run. Then then maybe about a month or two after it comes out on home video. Now, I think it's really more closer to when it comes out on home video, which isn't too terribly long. So I'd say wait until the movie comes out and is available on streaming. And then we can start talking openly about spoiler questions for movies like Avatar. Thank you for asking in advance, Hung Vu, though. That's very considerate of you. All right, next up. Justin D writes, what video game series not yet announced would you like to see come to streaming or the big screen? I'd love to see Nights into Dreams. What video game series not yet announced? You know what? And you're going to think I'm joking. I'm not. Day of the Tentacle. Any of you guys in the live chat remember Day of the Tentacle? I actually think I said this before. I think me and a couple friends had a discussion about this. I might have even talked about it on the show like a year or two ago. I legit straight up think that would make for a wacky movie. And if you guys don't know Day of the Tentacle, look it up. It's really funny. It's a fun little game, but just the absurdity of it, I think would make for a really cool, wacky kind of movie. By the way, Joey Rodriguez is asking if the super chats are closed. Yes, the super chats are closed because they're already completely full and packed. But I'm going to say Day of the Tentacle. That's what I'm going to go for. All right. Let's see. Jay Banks writes, hey, John. I was iffy on Quaritch's return in Avatar 2, but as soon as he jokingly said, why so blue? I was like, that's it, I'm down. This guy is intimidating and charismatic. Love to see where his story goes. Yeah, listen, I'm with you. And again, without going into big spoilery stuff, I was with you. It's like, how are they bringing Quaritch back? Like, I love Stephen Lang. And I was thrilled that he was going to be back in Avatar 2, but I'm like, how you gonna do that when he died in the first one? And you know what? When they first, I won't go into details, but when they first introduced him being back, I thought, well, this is a little bit of a stretch. But you know what? It worked for me. By the end of the day, it actually worked for me. And I'm glad he's back in the franchise. All right. Thanks for that, Jay. Next up, Moda Awesome writes, fun fact, other than Zoe Saldana, which actor is in 2 of the top 3 highest grossing movies? Jack Champion, the kid who played Spider in Avatar 2 and I forgot about this, yes, and was the kid on the bike in Endgame when Scott Lang first came back. Somebody told me about that a little while ago, and I'm wait, that was the kid from Avatar 2, the kid on the bike that you remember in Endgame's like, where am I? What time is it? And the kid on the bike tells him, I had totally forgotten about that. Yep, there it is. Zoe Saldana and Jack Champion are star in 2 of the highest grossing films of all time. Well, Zoe Saldana stars in 3, all 3 of them, right? Because she's in Avatar, she's in Endgame, and so Zoe Saldana's in all 3, but Jack Champion stars in 2 of them. There you go. Put it in the record books. All right. Thanks, Moto Awesome. Next up, we got the Super Ranger Mud Truck, who writes, hey, John, just watched Blast from the Past with Brendan. Oh my God, I forgot about that movie. And I forgot how funny and entertaining that movie was. Your thoughts on it? Help me out in the live chat. Did that not also star the girl from Clueless and the girl from, what's her name again? The one from Clueless and the one who plays Batgirl in the old George Clooney movie. Am I thinking of the right one, guys? Or am I thinking of a totally, totally different one? Alicia Silverstone. But was the one with Alicia Silverstone? It was? Okay, so yeah, that was the one. It has been a long time since I watched it, but I remember liking it. I remember liking it. By the way, did you see the Super Bowl commercial with Alicia Silverstone reenacting the stuff from Clueless? She's still beautiful. I don't know how old she is now. Maybe she's not even all that old, but she's still beautiful. My goodness. But yeah, man, I remember the film. It's been a beat since I watched it, but I remember liking it if I remember correctly. All right. Thanks a lot for that, Super Ranger. Next up, we've got Michael Jones, who super chats in like a $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Michael, for supporting us on that level, man. And Michael writes, Puss in Boots has passed Black Adam to become the 10th highest grossing domestic movie of 2022. This makes 2022 the first year ever where the top 10 domestic movies of the year were all sequels. Is that true? That's a really interesting. Hold on a second. Let me go to Box Office Mojo for a second and look up this thing. So if we're over here and looking it up, I know you guys can't see it properly here. I'm sorry about that. But Top Gun Maverick is a sequel. Wakanda Forever is a sequel. Doctor Strange is a sequel. Avatar is a sequel. Jurassic World is a sequel. Minions is a sequel. The Batman is not a sequel. There we go. Thor Love and Thunder is a sequel. Spider-Man No Way Home was a sequel, and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was a sequel. And then I guess you got to put in there, did Puss in Boots actually, I don't think Puss in Boots came out in 2022. I think that came out in 2023. At any rate, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is sitting at 190. All of them except for the Batman. The Batman is not a sequel. So, but yeah, Puss in Boots made more money than Black Adam. I think I said it on the show the other day. If you went back in time and told John 8 months ago, so yeah, the new Puss in Boots movie is going to make more than Black Adam, I would have thought you were crazy. I would have thought you were absolutely certifiably effing nuts. But that's the world we live in right now, I suppose. All right, man. Thanks a lot for sending that in, Michael. Appreciate that very much. All right. Armando Martinez writes, there it is. Better performance, Jeremy Renner in Hurt Locker or Clive Owen in Children of Men? By a little bit, I will go Clive Owen in Children of Men. Jeremy Renner is fantastic in Hurt Locker. I mean, and he was a really good actor before that, but that's the movie that really put Jeremy Renner, I think, on the map for a lot of people. And of course, it won Best Picture at the Academy Awards, directed by Catherine Bigelow. Great film. But yeah, Clive Owen in Children of Men, that was a real special performance. So is Jeremy Renner's, but I would give by the slightest bit, I would give the nod to the Clive Owen performance. Okay. Let's see here. Next up, we have, sorry, the thing's jumping around on me a little bit. There we go. Eden Aronovich writes, recently watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. I still have not. It was bad, but all the theater and I laughed so much on how awful it was. So in the end, I had a great experience. And you know what? Listen, look, again, I have not seen Pooh, Blood and Honey. I haven't seen it. But I would say it looks like the kind of movie that you're supposed to laugh at how bad it is. Like, right? Like, it's kind of like Vanilla Ice's Cool as Ice, which is my biggest guilty pleasure movie in of all time. But I think it's actually okay. Like, it's not like Morbius where people were laughing in the theater at how bad it was. That's not what Morbius was going for. But it almost feels like, and I say this as somebody who hasn't seen the movie, it almost feels like Pooh, Blood and Honey is supposed to be a movie where you laughed a lot in it at just how ridiculous and stupid it is. So maybe I'm wrong about that, but hey, the important thing is at the end of the day, you had a good time. All right, next up, our friend Josh Becker writes, John, I highly recommend you check out the trailer for Past Lives by A24. It looks like it could be another Everything Everywhere tearjerker. I've not heard that a trailer for Past Lives came out. I'll tell you what, Josh, I will make sure I make a note of watching that as soon as our show, well, maybe not as soon as our show is over, but sometime tonight, I will sit down and make sure I watch the trailer for that. I didn't even know the trailer came out. Thank you for putting that on my radar, man. I appreciate that very much, Josh. All right, next up, Armando Martinez writes, I was first introduced to Diego Luna and Pedro Pascal in the Netflix series Narcos, damn right, as they both took over the Star Wars Universal. Who do you think is the better actor? Pedro Pascal is the better actor. Diego Luna is terrific, though. Diego, and if you have not seen him in Narcos, you really, because he kind of became the lead character of Narcos. When was it? Season 2 or 3? I can't remember which season it was, but he's fantastic. Love him. That being said, I think Pedro Pascal is the better of the two. They're both great. That's not me dissing on either of them. They're both fantastic. But again, I would kind of give the little bit of the nod there to Pedro Pascal. I just think I believe he is an actor who will have an Oscar on his mantle before the end of his career. Maybe even an Emmy or two. Whereas Diego Luna is wonderful, fantastic, and he may very well end up with an Oscar someday. But I would put the higher odds of that on Pedro Pascal. Either way, they're both great. You wouldn't be going wrong if you cast either one of them in your movie. All right. Terry McGinnis writes, I'm worried about the inexperienced writers for the Marvels. One of them has only one writing credit, She-Hulk episode, the She-Hulk episode about Blonsky's retreat. Yeah, that makes me a little bit nervous too. I'm not going to lie to you. However, and I should not be saying this because I might get in trouble for saying this. I am hearing good things about the Marvels. I could give you a few more details on that, but I've already said too much. But I'm hearing very good things about the Marvels. So, and this, nope, already said too much. I will just say, look, I have the exact same worry as you, seeing the super, but again, I'd rather see an inexperienced writer working on a general MCU movie like an Ant-Man, like a Marvels, rather than what I'm concerned about is your big tentpole flagship movies like Avengers movies. But yeah, I'm hearing good things about the Marvels right now. As coming from somebody who is not real thrilled with Disney at the moment, I am telling you, I've actually heard pretty good things about the Marvels. I will just leave it at that. Thanks for that, Terry. All right, next up. The Rice Rat writes, say what you will about Blood and Honey, but it made more than $1 million on a $100,000 budget. That's incredible. The filmmakers should be proud. Absolutely, the filmmakers should be proud. And it's not just the filmmakers, though. It's also the people, the distributors, the people who then took that movie and made a legitimate first-class marketing campaign, really playing to the strengths of what that movie is. They made a gimmick out of it, and they found a way to get some people to the theaters to watch it. So yes, the filmmakers should be proud. I haven't seen the movie, but who should really be proud are the people at the exhibitors who were in charge of the marketing campaign. Because for very little money, they got a lot of people talking about Pooh, Blood and Honey, man. For almost a zero marketing budget, very, very small marketing budget, they got a lot of people talking about that movie. And for them, this is really their win. This is their win. But yeah, the producer, the creator should be proud as well. All right. Next up, Josh Becker also writes in, John, have you seen the trailer for the trailer for Champion starring Woody Harrelson? He's a basketball coach in it, and it comes out in March. It's a very stacked month. Bring on the filthy. I've not even heard of that coming out. You're right. March, we were just talking about on the John Campea Show earlier today. March is an insanely packed month. Because you've got Creed 3, you've got John Wick, you've got, I can't even remember we just went down a big, huge list. You guys in the live chat, what else have we got coming out here in March? Shazam 2, thank you, CJ Rebirth. Mario doesn't come out in March, does it? Dungeons and Dragons comes out in March. So Creed, I mean, it is a stacked months, but I have not been aware. Yeah, Mario's April. Thank you guys. Mario's April. Scream 6 comes out. That's going to do well. I mean, it is a stacked month, man, but no, I have not seen that trailer. I'm wondering if that's even getting a wide release because I've not heard about it. I've not seen it on the wide released lists for March. So, but I haven't seen the trailer yet. I'll have to go check that out. All right. Let's see here. Josh Becker also writes, the Across the Spider-Verse Funko Pops got unveiled for pre-order, and they are so cool. They have Medieval Vulture, nice, Spot, Spider-Punk, and others. Listen, man, I'm telling you what, at last year's Cinemacon, here, see, we're still talking about last year's Cinemacon. At last year's Cinemacon, they showed us like 12, 15, 16 minutes. I can't remember exactly how much, but they showed us a good chunk of the first act of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Some of it was just pencil sketch. Some of it was completed animation. Some of it was still just animatics, but they showed us like in one big long sequence, the first like 15 minutes or so of the movie. And it looks so good. It looks so good. Guys, I can't wait for you to see this. I can't wait to see the rest of it. It's going to be just bonkers. And you know, I'm a Funko Pop guy, so I'm probably going to pick those up, Josh. All right. Josh Becker also writes, I'm not worried about Loveness writing Kang Dynasty because I actually liked his serious parts of the script with the main crew. Just dial back on cringe jokes. Yeah, again, I am a little bit nervous about it just because, listen, I'm sure if I liked Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, I'd feel a little bit better about it. But I'm one of the people that it didn't really work for me. I didn't think it was garbage like some people say. I think it had some redeeming qualities to it. But when you combine the fact that the only feature film of his that's on his resume is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and I didn't really like that. And he doesn't have any other major films on his resume that I can fall back on. It does make me wonder a little. It makes me feel uneasy. It just makes me feel uneasy about him writing Kang Dynasty. I'm not going to lie. Like, I hope for great things for him. I hope he knocks it out of the park. I hope he does great. Or if Kevin Feige does replace him, I hope he writes other stuff and shows the world that he's really great. I'm cheering for him. I'm not trying to be a hater or anything like that, but at the end of the day, the movie comes first, and I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit concerned, but we'll see, man. Hopefully it all works out for the best. There's a decent chance it will. If Kevin Feige trusts him, I mean, how far off can he be? All right. Sam Fisher writes, isn't 10,000 years in the past too far backwards? Isn't Dune set in our far future? So wouldn't 10,000 years in the past be like the Roman Empire? Well, no. Well, it all depends on how you define far future. Like, and by the way, I'm not really clear on how much it is, but if like Dune, if the events of Dune are set like 100,000 years in the future, then 10,000 years before the events of Dune, we're talking about the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood, the Dune spin-off series, the Sisterhood that's coming out. Rob says it takes place like 10,000 years before the events of Dune. Then it is still very, very, very far in our future. So we will see. Again, I don't have the exact details. I don't know for sure, but clearly they're not going to have it 10,000 years in the past and then have it be in our past. It's still going to be set very far in our future. All right. Good question though, Sam. Next up, Orange Hand writes, did you see the Vulture article where VFX artists speak out about Quantumania's problems, blaming human greed? I think it's worth a read. I don't give a fuck. I'll be honest with you. I don't give a flying fuck anymore about everybody complaining about work. Look, there is clearly, first of all, every movie that gets made, every producer, every studio that makes it is making it to maximize their profits. All right. They all do it. Every studio. A24 does it. All right. Now, A24 doesn't have the money to make big blockbusters, but they do make their movies and budget their movies in such a way to try to maximize their profits. Every single fucking studio does it. And when it comes to the visual effects industry, this has been a problem for a very, very long time, long before Marvel and the MCU became a big thing on the stage. Remember, the big problem really came up with Ang Lee's movie, the one with the tiger on the boat. Why am I freezing on the name of that movie? I was just talking about it the other day. Guys, throw in the name of that movie. You know what I'm talking about. This was a problem going, Life of Pi. Thank you. Josiah was the first one to throw that in there. This thing all goes all the way back to there. The problems, there's a systemic problem in how the financial inner workings function within the visual effects industry. And it goes all the way back, again, long before the MCU was the biggest force in movies. So this isn't some new thing to that, but yeah, every studio does it. It's just part of the thing, and they need to change it. But it's not one studio. It's not one studio. Okay? It's every studio. Marvel does more work now and provides more work than the rest of the industry combined. So they kind of become the face then of any benefits or problems that the industry is having. But it's only because they're the biggest game in town now. The problems existed before they were there. And it's a problem that needs to be addressed, but it isn't a Marvel issue. It's an entire industry issue. All right. Next up, Chuck the Mystery writes, "Hey, John, one of two. Love the first Aquaman." I did too. I really, really I didn't like it as much as Raw, but I had a lot of fun with the first Aquaman. So even if these things we are hearing are true, I'm probably going to love the film anyway. That being said, where's the second Chuck the Mystery one? I wouldn't mind seeing a new take in the new DCEU. When Alan Ritchson played the character, it was a bit too surfer dude, but a balance would be nice. Yeah, I just don't know if they're planning on rebooting the Aquaman character, or whether they're planning on continuing it with Jason Momoa and have Jason Momoa play another character like a Lobo or something. He could do both. I mean, that's possible. You can do it. But I don't know if that's their plan or not. I don't know what they're aiming for right now. So, look, I have heard that it wasn't that great, but I heard that a while ago and I just kind of dismissed it. It wasn't until today when I saw Jeff Snyder is also hearing from other people that it's pretty terrible that I remembered my old conversation. So I don't know. Look, I love Jason Momoa. I really like the first Aquaman movie. I'm going to have my fingers crossed for it, but yeah, right now I'm not hearing great things about it. But if they have to, if they reboot the character, they reboot the character. All right. 156 Impulse writes, as a Yellowstone fan, I've been following the news. Did you see Kevin's lawyer spoke out and said, don't believe it? Saw it on CNN News. I love that show. I hope they make a show with Matthew as well. Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing. Of course, Kevin Costner's lawyer is going to say, don't believe it. What else is Kevin Costner's lawyer supposed to say? Because some not so flattering things about Kevin Costner have been coming out. Now, they have all been coming out from one side and one perspective. But, Christian Harloff pointed out on the John Campea Show yesterday that the thing is, Kevin Costner has been carrying this reputation around with him for 30 years, right? It's not like this is new to Yellowstone. And I am a huge Kevin Costner fan. I love Kevin Costner. He is my Pa Kent forever. I love Kevin Costner. I love him in Yellowstone. He's awesome. But the stories and the reputation of Kevin Costner being really, really difficult to work with have been gone on for a long time. And so even though we're only hearing all these negative things about what's going on with Yellowstone and Kevin Costner from one side, the fact that these are the same types of stories we've been hearing about him for 30 years, and you know what? Whatever. You're an actor. You do whatever you want. And if that makes you difficult to work with, whatever, then people just shouldn't work with you. And if they still want to work with you, they should know that it's not going to be smooth sailing if they want to work with you still. But yeah, sure, Kevin Costner's lawyers say don't believe it, but what else is Kevin Costner's lawyer going to say? Anyway, I love Kevin Costner. I hope everything works out. I want to see Yellowstone season 6 with, John Dutton still in it. But we'll see what happens. It's not the end of the world if he has to leave the show, though. That's where I'll leave it at that. All right. Chuck the Mystery writes. Oh, sorry, we already got to that one. Next up, Chuck the Mystery also writes, do you think James Gunn has all of his casting for Superman, Batman, and Damian Wayne locked in and ready to announce by the time we reach Comic-Con? I think he will have all that. Okay, so I believe Superman is cast. No insider information about that, by the way. But I believe Superman has been already cast. I'm not so sure about Batman and Damian Wayne for The Bold and the Brave, but I do believe they will be cast by the time we get to Comic-Con. And that's still Comic-Con's in July, right? So what are we in February, March, April, May, June? They still got almost half a year to get all that lined up. So I don't know if they have those characters cast yet. I do believe they probably have Superman cast. But they've got a lot of time to get Batman and Damian cast, and I do believe we'll get a casting announcement at Cinemacon because they're going to be going into production on that. If those are supposed to come out in 2025, I think at least the pre-production, costume fittings and designings, I think stuff like that will have to happen sometime this year, or 2025. So it's going to have to go into motion pretty soon. So I think they will have them ready to announce by Comic-Con if they're not already cast at this point. Let's see. Next up, we've got 156 Impulse again, who writes, you know the answer more than anyone. Do you believe the late John Schnepp would love the new DCU direction? And great show yesterday with Harloff. I mean, well, remember, we haven't seen a single thing from the new DC yet, right? And we're not going to see a new thing for 2 years. So it's hard to say. Look, I know that John Schnepp loved James Gunn. Like, that much I know. We can tell you that for 100% certainty. John Schnepp loved James Gunn. So I know John Schnepp would be very excited that James Gunn is now shepherding the DC universe. And I know John Schnepp would be very excited by a number of the projects that have been announced, right? A number of those projects that they announced, Schnepp would be thrilled that they announced them. But the direction of the DCU, we don't really know it until we start seeing it. Like, we got to see some of it in front of us to be tangible before even because, I'm a big James Gunn fan, and I think him becoming the head of the DCU is the best move that David Zaslav could have made. But I can't say, even as a fan, for 100% certainty that the direction they're going in is great until I start to see a little bit of it. So would Schnepp love that James Gunn is running the DCU? Yes. Would he love the new direction? Have to see a little bit of that direction before we can make that pronouncement, I think. Anyway, great question, 156. Okay, next up. Chuck the Mystery writes, over under 40% that Gunn gives us an official word about their plans for Wonder Woman at Comic-Con, since right now all we know about it is Paradise Island. I'm going to go under 40%. And not 0, not 5%, but I'm going to go under 40% because I think when Comic-Con comes around, they're going to put and keep their focus on the stuff that has already been announced, right? Because anything involving Wonder Woman and a lot of those other projects, that's not going to be coming out until 2026, 2027, 2028. And so I think he's going to keep his focus when we get to Comic-Con. And this is just a guess, by the way. I'm just speculating. But I think by the time we get around to this Comic-Con, he's only going to focus on the stuff that we already know is coming. And so, AKA the stuff they've already announced. So I'm going to go not 0, but under 40%. Okay. Thanks, Chuck. Next up, Moda Awesome writes, another fun fact, Quantumania is the 31st MCU movie, and this movie heavily featured Baskin Robbins, which has 31 flavors. To quote the teacher in the first Incredibles movie, coincidence? I think not. Yeah, that is a very interesting piece of trivia, Moda Awesome. All right, next up, Milo Murphy writes, I think Green Goblin was the best Phase 4 villain. I don't know that I agree with that. He was a very, very good villain. I liked him very, very much in that. No, but he's not. No, 100%, 1000%, nothing else comes close. The best antagonist in Phase 4 is Wenwu. Wenwu is by far the best antagonist we've had in the MCU Phase 4. Goblin was great, don't get me wrong, but yeah, Wenwu by a mile was in my opinion. It's all subjective. I'm not saying you're wrong. You can't be wrong about your opinion. You think that, but I personally think by miles. Also very good. You know what? Somebody just said it in the live chat. Who was it? Jake Clark just threw in there in the live chat. Wanda was also a wonderful, I didn't super love Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness, but Wanda was an awesome villain. Awesome villain. Because every time she would show up, you'd think, well, everybody's fucked. Because Wanda's here, you're all fucked. The only thing you can do at this point is run. And so she was great too, but yeah, I still think Wenwu is the best one there. All right, thanks, Murphy. Sam Fisher writes, did you see the trailer for About My Father with Sebastian Leslie Bibb? I love Leslie Bibb and Robert De Niro. Oh my God, the Peacock. No, I have not seen the trailer. I'm assuming you mean the Peacock, that this is a Peacock original film. If that is the case, no, I've not seen it, but I'm a big Leslie Bibb fan. I'll tell you this little story about Leslie Bibb. I will always love her because I'm completely biased. First of all, she's in one of the great unsung rom-coms of the past decade or so called A Good Old-Fashioned Orgy with Jason Sudeikis and Lake Bell. If you haven't seen it, totally should. It's a great, fun movie, and Leslie Bibb is in it. And of course, Leslie Bibb's in the first Iron Man, and she's a terrific actress. I like her a lot. But I remember it was shortly after, for those of you who don't know, before I started working with AMC, Time Magazine did an article on me called The Boys Who Love Toys. There's an unlikely new superpower in the world of film. And this is back in my movie blog days. And Time Magazine was doing an article on the emerging influence now of these online film pundits. And so they had me in the main picture. They had dressed me up in Jedi robes and they did a photo shoot with me. It was a lot of fun. At any rate, I then went to go visit the set of a movie that some friends of mine were making. And Leslie Bibb was there on set. And they introduced me to Leslie. And now this is going back years. Again, this is before AMC. But they introduced me to Leslie. And they showed, my friend had the magazine. They showed her the copy of Time Magazine. She's like, "Oh my God, this is so huge for you." Like she was just being nice, but still she was being really nice. And me being an effing nobody from Canada, just being so little nobody, like I had this actress like telling me how awesome it was. So I was like feeling really good about it, even though she was just being nice. She goes, "Will you autograph it for me?" And I guarantee you she threw it in the garbage 5 minutes after the conversation. 100% guarantee. But she's like, "Will you autograph it for me?" I'm like, "Okay." And like I'm autographing something for Leslie Bibb. And even though that magazine that I autographed ended up in the garbage 5 minutes after I signed it, I guarantee you it did. The fact of the matter that she made me feel like $1 million. She made me feel like $1 million. And I will always be incredibly grateful to her for giving me that experience, even though she wouldn't remember me from a brick on the wall. Even though that magazine, I guarantee you, ended up in the garbage 5 minutes after I gave it to her. It doesn't matter. She gave me an experience that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. And I geeked out and all that kind of stuff. So I will always love Leslie Bibb. So I'm going to have to check out that trailer. All right. Thanks a lot for that, Sam. There's my little Leslie Bibb story of the day. If you didn't know, she's a pretty incredible person. All right. Sean Ryder writes, in theory, could they shop around Mindhunter? I mean, in theory, they could, but I mean, every place else would come across the same problem. It is too expensive for the numbers that it draws. And that's why David said, like, yeah, this thing's dead. Like he said, Netflix rolled the dice even letting us do the first 2 seasons. So they could shop it around, but the economics, the economical reality of the situation doesn't change. So it's going to be very, very hard for them to get anybody else to pick it up. So, but in theory, they could do it, but who's going to pick it up? All right. Fangblaze71 writes, recently watched all the Fast and Furious movies. God, they're stupid, but I love almost all of them. 8 was definitely my favorite of the franchise so far. I think for me, 7 was my favorite. Like, I didn't even like 1 and 2 or 3. I didn't like the first 3. It was number 4 for me that I went, this one wasn't that bad. And then 5, I loved. And 6, I loved. And 7, I think is my favorite. I think 7 might be my favorite. Or you know what? 6 might be my favorite. I know Rob's 5th is the favorite. Mine might be 6 or 7. I didn't like 8 as much, but I still really liked 8. 9 was terrible. So I'm really excited about 10. And I'm just going to trust it's going to get everything back on track. No pun intended. All right, guys, listen. We're going to just take one quick minute here. I'm going to go refill my drink. And if you guys will give me 1 minute, we're going to take a second here and thank one of the sponsors of this video of Ask Me Anything, our friends over at MasterClass. We want to thank a sponsor of this video, MasterClass. MasterClass offers classes on a wide variety of topics, all taught by world-class instructors at the very top of their fields. Each class is broken out into individual video lessons, usually around 10 minutes long. And MasterClass is completely accessible on your phone, the web, smart TV, and available via audio mode to listen to classes on the go. They have over 2,500 video lessons from over 180 of today's most brilliant minds. They're all available anytime, anywhere on iOS, Android, desktop, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and Roku. Now, obviously around here on the John Campea Show, we love our movies, so why not learn filmmaking from Jodie Foster, or maybe directing from Ron Howard himself, or the great Neil Gaiman doing his masterclass on the art of storytelling. And you guys have heard me talk about my favorite masterclass, Business Strategy and Leadership by Big Papa Iger himself, Bob Iger, the new and returning CEO of Disney. So guys, I highly recommend that you check it out. Get unlimited access to every class, and as a John Campea Show listener, you get 15% off an annual membership. Just go to masterclass.com/Campea now. That's masterclass.com/Campea for 15% off Masterclass. And we are back. Thank you so much to our friends at MasterClass for sponsoring this episode of Open Mic Ask John Anything. All right, guys. With that down, let's keep things rolling here. So that was Fangblaze talking about Fast and Furious. We go on to Richard K, who writes, do you think we will ever get that new Conan with Arnold back? No. If that was ever going to happen, listen, it's not impossible. Not impossible. But if that was ever going to happen, Richard, it needed to have happened like 5 years ago. Like, I don't know how old Arnold is now at this point, but Arnold's still great. And I'm not saying Arnold can't star in movies still. He absolutely can. But I think the time for a Conan movie has come and gone. I don't even know that movie would make any money anymore, to be honest with you. All right. Next up, we've got Fangblaze71 who writes, I don't know why, but when watching the Fast and the Furious movies, I always expect the cars to turn into Transformers. They just have that Transformers look. I will tell you what, if somehow, some way, Paramount and Universal could come to some kind of a deal, a Transformers Fast and the Furious movie would totally work in all of its glorious ridiculousness. I mean, we've talked about Jurassic Park and Fast and the Furious crossing over. We've talked about whatever, but I'm telling you, a Transformers and Fast and the Furious crossover in all of its ridiculousness would completely work. All right. Next up, Sam Fisher writes, I watched the pilot for Milo Ventimiglia's new show, Company You Keep. I really liked it. I really bought into the main couple, Charlie and Emma. You know, it's funny. Last night, Ann and I were on our evening. We go out for a long walk every evening. And we were talking about, we got to sit down and watch that. Now, for those of you who don't know, Ann and I are married because of Milo Ventimiglia. He's responsible for us meeting. I will always be in Milo's debt. Milo was also, like, besides the actual first time we met, Milo was then later a guest on my live show. Of course, Milo Ventimiglia is from The Last of Us. He was also in Heroes. He played the main character, Peter Petrelli, in Heroes. And anyway, he was a guest on my live show, and Anne called in to get my contact information, and we went on our first date, and we've been married ever since. Milo would have been at our wedding. Like, we invited Milo to our wedding, but he was literally in the Middle East shooting something, like some film project he was doing at the time, so he couldn't be there. But yeah, I will always have a big place in my heart for Milo Ventimiglia, and I am looking forward to checking out his new show. And because it doesn't matter if I heard from everybody that it was the worst thing in the world, I would still check it out because it's Milo. All right, thanks for sending that in, man. That's right. CJ Rebirth also reminds everybody that he played Rocky's grown-up son in Rocky 5 or 6. I can't remember which one it was. All right. Next up, we've got Just a Sub 32 who writes, I just watched The Last Jedi for the first time, and I could essentially summarize it like this. Good movie, bad Star Wars movie. You know, you're not the first person I've heard say that. I think The Last Jedi is a decent movie. I have problems with it. I still contend that to anybody, and it's fair if you like the movie and it's fair if you don't like the movie, but to anybody who says, that wasn't my Luke Skywalker, then you've never watched the Star Wars movies. If you don't think that Luke Skywalker acted completely consistently with everything we know about Luke, his personality and his history, then you simply don't understand Star Wars. I'm not saying if you didn't like The Last Jedi, you don't understand Star Wars. Not at all. If you told a million reasons why you wouldn't like The Last Jedi, completely. I get it. I have definite issues with the movie. But like the whole thing about if the way it's saying that's not my Luke Skywalker, well then you're in your head following a make-believe Luke Skywalker, because everything he says and everything he does in that movie is completely consistent with things we know about him in the franchise. Again, doesn't mean you had to like it, not at all. Doesn't mean you couldn't hate the movie. Of course you could. There's a lot of things to not like about the movie. But I will always defend that Luke completely acts like Luke in this movie. He 100% does. Doesn't mean I didn't have problems with the movie though, but yeah, you're not the first person I've heard say good movie, bad Star Wars movie. I don't know that I agree, but you're not the only one I've heard say that, Just a Sub. So you're not alone in that theory, in that belief. I mean, Just a Sub also writes, "Hey John, have you been keeping up with The Bad Batch?" Hell no. Recent episodes 7 and 8 is some of the best Star Wars I've seen. I'm glad you feel that way. I tried to get on board with The Bad Batch. Nah. No, I think The Bad Batch is quite horrible, to be honest with you. Now, if you like the last few episodes, that's great. If you love the whole series, that's great. I'm not trying to yuck on your yum, and I'm not trying to try to talk you out of liking it. If you like it, that's awesome. I celebrate that. But it's definitely not for me. All right. Next up, Moda Awesome writes, regarding earlier when you spoke about the fantastical in the current MCU, I love the first 2 acts of Shang-Chi. The Tao Lo world lost me a bit in the 3rd act. I love the Tao Lo stuff because it was set up first with the fantastical within the mundane. You know, it was set up by all these wondrous comic book kind of ideas and tropes within the regular world. And because all that was set up, then when they go into Tao Lo, I loved it. Like I loved the Lake Dragon. I love that movie. And for me, the 3rd act, I think was the strongest part of the movie, but that's because it was set up by the first 2 acts that really gave it that kind of mythological, fantastical payoff, because it was all grounded in the mundane first. I think that's why I liked it so much. Again, if it didn't work for you, obviously I'm not trying to refute you. If it didn't work for you, it didn't work for you. Totally cool. But I think that's why for me, it did work so well. But that's just me. All right. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, Moda Awesome. All right. Jose Garcia writes, I'm worried about season 3 and 4 of Mando. I thought season 2 was weaker than season 1 because it felt like Mando was being used as advertisement for other Star Wars shows. I prefer just Mando and Grogu. Here's the thing. It's interesting you mentioned that, Jose, because a lot of people were saying, I don't like this season of Mandalorian, until Luke showed up at the end. And then all of a sudden everybody was, sploosh, Luke showed up. This season's awesome, right? I, however, loved all the season of The Mandalorian. And yeah, did they take moments to introduce us to Boba Fett? Sure. But it never felt like just an advertisement to me, because Boba Fett played an important narrative role in Mandalorian season 2. And as long as, see, this is the whole thing with cameos. I talk about this all the time. Cameos are perfectly fine if the cameo fulfills a narrative purpose. If they're just there to say, hey, everybody, I'm Boba Fett, then that's just stupid. But I found both the Ahsoka and Boba Fett appearances in the show, and they were more than just cameos. I felt like both of them completely served narrative purpose within the story of Mando. And I really liked the feel of season 2 all the way through. I particularly, the one episode of season 2 that a lot of people gave a hard time to was the ice spiders. Remember the ice spiders episode? I think Peyton Reed might have directed that one. I'm not sure. Maybe Peyton Reed directed that one. Maybe he didn't. But I freaking loved that episode. I'm not saying it was the best of the season, but I loved that episode. with the ice spiders. It had like an old school, like aliens/aliens kind of feel to it. You know, I just dug it. Lady Frog. I just loved the season. I thought the season was great. I really did. And of course the sploosh moment with Luke at the end. Of course, that was a huge payoff. That was awesome too. But I loved the whole season. All right. Thanks for that, Jose. Appreciate that, man. Next up, CJ Rebirth writes, I can now add you to my list of movie people I've met/seen alongside Wendy Lee, Sam Raimi, and Jason Reitman, as well as go to at Teen Choice Awards. I don't know if you can list me in the Teen Choice Awards. Yeah, Wendy Lee, for those of you who don't know, she is on a channel called The Movie Couple. Now, there's not a lot of channel reaction or trailer reaction channels that I like all that much, but there's a couple of them that are great. Obviously, Real Rejects, top of the Day One guys are phenomenal. But Movie Couple, if you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, The Movie Couple, Wendy Lee is one half of The Movie Couple. They have a really good channel. They have a really, really good channel. So I would recommend you check them out. It's funny because Wendy started off in the movie industry in the online space as my assistant. And then she became like a production manager at Collider and then took on more there of an on-camera presence. And now The Movie Couple, great channel. Go check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it. All right. Next up, we've got The Fault in Our Death Stars writes, one of two. Hey, John, personal question. How do you know when to cut off a friend? My friend seems to lack respect for me and my boundaries and made an unwanted physical advance on my sister. Oh, that's a conversation that's happening with a baseball bat at that point. Anyway, it sucks because of our strong history, but I can't be friends with someone who lacks respect for me or my sister. Oh yeah, no, that's to quote Tom Hatherford in Parks and Rec. That's dunzo. That's dunzo. Like that's it. Like that. There are certain things that there's just no coming back from. There's certain things there's no coming back from. And listen, that doesn't mean you have to carry a hatred around in your heart for the person, but you just got to recognize this, like, you know what? You and I can't be friends anymore. I wish you well, Godspeed, but we can't have a relationship anymore. The whole making an advance on your sister part, yeah, that's there's no coming back from that. And I don't know that I could be as calm, cool, and collected as I'm saying it now, but yeah, that's just the end of that. That's the end of that. And listen, believe me, I not that I've had to throw down with people who did inappropriate things with my sisters, but the knowing when you it's always a tough point when you realize that what you thought was a good relationship and you realize it just wasn't, right? Like, listen, I'll be honest with you. You know what? It's Harloff calling. Hold on a second. I'm live on the air right now. What the hell do you want? Oh, that's right. I was calling you, wasn't I, earlier? Okay, I will. It has to do with Cinemacon. I will. Let me get back to you a little bit later. Okay, thanks, man. Okay, so that was Harloff. Anyway, yeah. Listen, there have been relationships that I thought I had good relationships, and it turns out there were some. Don't try to think about names they could be because you won't guess them. But I found out later on that there were a couple that, no, they weren't really relationships. They were just some people using me because they thought I could help their career or I could get them something. And then once I wasn't in a position anymore, or I left a position where I could help them in their career or I could benefit them somehow, realizing, oh, that wasn't really a legitimate relation in the first place. Listen, it sucks. It sucks. It does. But yeah, you've got to recognize that relationship will never be a beneficial one to you anymore. and that person kind of broke a trust, and you can't be in a relationship with that person anymore. You got to cut that off, man. You got to cut that off. I am not a professional therapist. Take my advice with a giant grain of salt, because I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But if you just ask my personal opinion, my personal opinion is that you need to cut that relationship off. That's just me. All right. Next up, Clay Woodley writes, "Hey, John, hope you're having a great day. Thank you so much. Do you think Guardians 3 can make $200 million in its opening weekend? I think it has a very strong chance. It can. I wouldn't put money on it actually making $200 million opening weekend, but I do believe it is within the realm of possibility. Look, if Ant-Man 3 can make 104, then a celebrated franchise, a very popular franchise like Guardians 3, it can. And you know what? I'm not sure 100%, but let me look what Guardians 2, let me see what it made on its opening weekend. Guardians 2, well, I mean, it did really well, but it made 146. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 made 146 million opening weekend. That means it has to make considerably more. It needs to make 54 million more than Guardians of the Galaxy 2 did. It's a tall order. It is possible. I wouldn't put money on it, but it's possible. So we'll see. All right. Next up, Just a Sub 32 writes, what's the movie you have seen the most in theaters? That's easy. Star Wars, The Phantom Menace. Mine was the first Deadpool. I saw that movie 6 times in theaters. I saw Star Wars, The Phantom Menace in theaters 17 times. Now, and every time I saw it, I realized more and more just how bad the movie is. But you got to understand, when Star Wars, The Phantom Menace came out, not only was it the first new Star Wars movie since my childhood, but I was also working with a visual effects company. I was working in visual effects at the time. And so me and the other people in the visual effects company, whenever lunch would come around or the afternoon would come around and maybe we weren't super busy, we'd go, this was our code word. We'd go, should we have a staff meeting? And that was code for us saying, let's run to the mall, to the cheap theater and go watch The Phantom Menace. Because you got to understand, The Phantom Menace was the biggest advance in visual effects history. I still don't think today that any movie has advanced the art of visual effects the way Phantom Menace advanced the art of visual effects. From where visual effects were to where that movie took it, I don't think any other movie has made that big of an advance like The Phantom Menace did. So who worked in visual effects, like we would go and watch The Phantom Menace and just like, it doesn't matter how bad the movie is. What they did technically in that movie, our jaws were always on the floor. The movie I saw the second most amount of times in any theater was Kenneth Branagh's Thor movie, the first Thor. I saw that in theaters 7 times. And I think that's the second most I ever saw a movie in theater. But anyway, there you go. All right. Next up, we've got Clay Woodley, who writes, even though I wasn't thrilled with Fast 8 and 9, I'm still excited for Fast 10. I hope they can get back to 5, 6, and 7, peak of the franchise. I agree. Listen, I liked Fast 8, hated Fast 9, but I'm very excited about Fast 10. And I'll tell you what, man, that new trailer they put out, that did a lot to get me even more excited. I think the trailer for Fast 10 looked fantastic. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed with you that they get back to the glory of Fast 5, Fast 6, Fast 7, and to a degree, Fast 8. And I think they're going to learn a lot of lessons from how truly terrible Fast 9 was, and they're going to get right back on track. Again, no pun intended, but I'm also with you. I'm very excited about Fast 10. All right. Next up, Jesse Has a Turtle writes, not sure if you already said, but since the movie has already been released, can you share what the Doctor Strange spoilers were that you've seen? So back in the day, you remember me and Rob talked about this a little bit, but we had the, I won't tell you specifically what was sent to us just to protect the people who sent it, but we were fully aware long before the movie came out about Wanda killing the Illuminati, about Wanda killing Mr. Fantastic and killing Professor X and killing all those people. And we found out, like, right before the movie came out, it became apparent that Wanda is the villain of the film. And I had speculated years earlier that Wanda would end up being the antagonist, I should say, of Doctor Strange. But a few months before the movie came out, we got shown Wanda killing the Illuminati. And so that was the part that we knew about it. So there was that. All right. Next up, we got Jesse Has a Turtle also writes, also, does it bother you in any way, even if it's slightly, when you get a lot of questions every day that always tend to share the same answer? No, not at all. Listen, it's part of discussion. I love discussion. And listen, I can get asked the same question 10 days in a row. I never take for granted that the person asking the question watched yesterday. They may have not heard the answer. Or there could be like literally 500 people watching the video that didn't watch the other video where I answered the same question. It never bothers me. Never bothers me at all. So yeah, there's that. All right. Fangblaze71 writes, what did Ray think about Quantumania? He didn't mind it. He actually had a pretty good time. He didn't love it, but he didn't think it was all that bad. All right. Richard, he actually liked MODOK. So there you go. Richard K sends in like a $20 super chat. Thank you, Richard, for supporting our channel on that member, man, on that level, man. We appreciate that. Richard writes, over under 40% that we get Downey Iron Man and Chris Evans Captain America back in Kang Dynasty as variants. So the Iron Man in our world is dead, but this is a variant from a different multiverse. Same with Cap. I would say, since I 100% believe that both Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans will ultimately be back. How big or how small of a role, who knows? For how long or how short, who knows? But I believe both of them will be back. I think it is more likely, though, that it would be for Secret Wars than it would be for Kang Dynasty. So I will say over 40%, but not just for Secret Wars. I'll say between Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, over 40%. Not 80%, not 85%, but I will say over 40. So I'll go over 40 on that. Maybe close to 50. I think it's a coin toss. So probably close to 50, maybe a little over 50%. I would give that chance for both Kang Dynasty, either or Kang Dynasty or Secret Invasion, not just for Kang Dynasty though. All right. Great question, Richard. Thanks for sending that in. And thank you for supporting our channel on that level, man. We appreciate that very much. All right. Richard K also writes, best Kate Beckinsale acting performance. The Aviator. Wasn't the biggest role she had, but she might have been nominated for a best supporting actress in that. Guys in the live chat, help me out with that. See if you can find that out. I think she might have been nominated for that, but I will say The Aviator. All right, even though it was a small thing. Guys are saying no, she wasn't nominated for that. Okay, there you go. But I still thought she was remarkable in that. All right, next up, we got Fangblaze71 who writes, let's see here. Right, there it is. Fangblaze71 writes, maybe the Avengers won't have a leader, but rather work for someone like Nick Fury, Thunderbolt Ross, or someone else. Well, then that would make them their leader. And maybe Nick Fury is the leader. I think you can make the argument that in the first Avengers, you could make the argument, I wouldn't say necessarily agree, but you could make the argument that Nick Fury was the leader of the Avengers in the first movie. I mean, of course, then Cap is the one calling the battle orders on the ground. And Hulk, smash. So you could maybe make that argument too, but they'll have a leader. Yeah, the Avengers will have a leader. Maybe it'll be Nick Fury, but I think either way, one way or the other, they will have a leader. All right, next up. Shibaji writes, or just sends in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you so much for that, man. I appreciate that. Kyle Grinder writes, Patrick Stewart, Hugh Jackman will always be remembered for their iconic portrayals as Professor X and Wolverine. Do you think Henry Cavill will be remembered for his portrayal as Superman years later? It all depends. By the way, I'm not completely sure that you're right about Patrick Stewart. I think there's a lot of people out there that 15 years from now, when you bring up Patrick Stewart, the thing they're going to say is Jean-Luc Picard. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say Jean-Luc Picard. Now, again, of course, a lot of people will all say Professor X. You know what? For those of you watching live, I'm going to put up a poll right now. So here's the poll. The question will be, Patrick S. remembered more as Picard or Prof X? So I'm going to go Picard, and the next one would be Prof X. Okay. I'm just curious what you guys in particular would say. And we'll see what's there right now. The first bunch of you have answered. We've got 120 answers. 63% of you are saying Professor X. The rest are saying Picard. Now it's 64% Professor X, the rest Picard. Now we're more of a comic book movie audience than we are a Star Trek audience. Sorry, Rob. We are more of a comic book movie audience than we are a Star Trek movie audience. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people that will remember him as Picard. So we got a little over 200 votes right now. 65% are saying Professor X, 35% are saying Picard. So yeah, again, I think a lot of people would be thinking him. As far as Henry Cavill goes, Henry Cavill has a lot of his career left, right? It could be that his new Warhammer stuff is going to become the next big surprise, massive blockbuster hit franchise. Maybe yes, maybe no, whatever. And maybe they'll think of it as that. Or maybe 10 years from now, he plays like the new Conan. I'm just making stuff up, but I mean, Henry Cavill is still way too early in his career for us to say that, oh, he'll ultimately be remembered as this. It's still too early in his career. And look, let's be honest, he wasn't that. He's my all-time favorite Superman. He's my bro from another Mo. I love Henry Cavill. You know I do. He's my favorite. But his run as Superman was not super successful. And it was a little bit divisive for some people, right? So if Henry Cavill's career ended today, yes, he would most be remembered as Superman. But when his career ends in 30 or 40 years from now, who knows what he'll be remembered as? We'll have to wait and see. Again, it's way too early in his career for us to make that call yet, Kyle. All right, thanks for asking, though. All right, next up, Jamie Rell writes, do you think at this point they'll just use multiverse to bring in the X-Men? I don't. Easy way for casual audiences to understand. I know the problem that has. The thing is, multiverse just suggests that the X-Men are out there somewhere in some universe. Kevin Feige has made it pretty clear, and I don't agree with him, but Kevin Feige has made it pretty clear the X-Men are going to be in the MCU. They're not going to be their separate universe, which I think is what they should do, but they're not going to do that. So I don't think multiverse is a way to bring them in. They'll come up with something else. And listen, I'm not saying I have any insider information saying that they won't do it that way. I'm just saying I don't think that's the way they'll do it. I don't think that's the way they'll do it, but we'll find out. All right. Thanks, Jamie. Next up, John Redcorn writes, if Ant-Man has more than 61% drop in the second weekend, which I think is possible, over or under 40%, Kevin Feige changes writers for Kang Dynasty, and would that delay it? No, changing writers for Kang Dynasty would not delay Kang Dynasty because it's still a long ways off. I don't know, like 60%, if it drops 61%, that's not good, but it's not horrible, right? Like on average, you want to see the movie drop somewhere between 50 and 60%. Over 60% drop is bad. Under 50% is great, but like 61% isn't the end of the world. I'd say if Ant-Man and the Wasp dropped like 70%, because movies that open bigger will have a bigger second weekend drop because they've had more people see it. So that's why like Avengers Endgame had like a 70%, or Spider-Man No Way Home had like a 70% drop on week 2. Well, that's because everybody already saw it on the first weekend. But Ant-Man and the Wasp only opened to 104. If it dropped like 70%, that could be considered a little bit disastrous. So I don't think it'll drop that much though. So I don't think we have to worry about it. But if it does drop like more than 70%, then there could be problems. So we'll have to wait and see. All right. Chief just sends in a super chat badge to be supportive. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Kara Black sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Kara, for supporting us on that level. Kara writes, Overall, Quantumania isn't horrible, but it's a far cry from... Wait a minute, didn't you send that in already? I thought we had that one already. Isn't a far cry, but I found the ending of the film to be very jarring. Also, personally, the worst MCU film show, but the two post-credits were fascinating. I pretty much believe that was already sent in. So I don't know if that's just duplicating up or not, but I will double check. But listen, that brings us to this. But thank you, Kara, regardless. That brings us to, I need to take another break here because, again, my cup, well, not completely empty, but it's almost empty. It's been a little over a half hour since our last break. So we're going to take another quick break here, guys, to thank another sponsor of our show today, the MCU's own Ryan Reynolds' Mint Mobile. We'll be right back in just a minute. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. If saving more and spending less is one of your top goals for 2023, why are you still paying insane amounts of money every month for your phone bill? Switching to Mint Mobile is the easiest way to save this year. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know I made the switch over to Mint Mobile a while ago. The process couldn't have been easier, and I can't believe that I am spending less than a third of what I was spending on one of the other major carriers before. By going online only and eliminating the traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and switch easily in minutes with eSIM. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. All right, guys, and we are back, and a big thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile. Guys, if in all dead honesty, if you're not using Mint Mobile as your mobile service provider, you are wasting a lot of money every single month. Make sure you guys go and check them out and use the promo code Campea. All right, guys, listen. For whatever reason, the YouTube system that collects and organizes the questions that get sent in has become discombobulated, and everything now is completely out of order. So I think I've got a way around that, but there is a possibility that I may miss one or two of the super chats. I hope I'm not going to, but there is a chance that we may miss one or two of the super chats that get sent in because of this big miscombobulation that's happened. So I'm going to try something here. I'm going to try to get something set up here. Give me one moment as I try this. Okay, I'm going to go to this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. And maybe I can get this working. Give me 1 second. Actually, I'm going to try to do it this way here. See if I can get this to work. Okay. Okay. And I'm going to try to bring this over here. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it or not, but I'm going to try my best. Guys, this is the problem when you're doing things live and you're doing things solo. Like, I don't have Jonathan here or Taylor to help me out technically. So I'm trying to do this all by myself on the fly. And if we run into problems, I'm very, very apologetic, but I'm going to do my best to make sure we get through the rest of this. Okay. All right. Let's keep going here. Next up, we got Justin D, who writes, what video game series? No, we already did that one. James Bank Quaritch, we already did that one. Okay, Alan Ling, we have not had this one. Hey, John, I commute to New York for work. That's a tough commute. I'm not looking forward to watching Mandalorian on the bus. I wish they did it like HBO Max and dropped it at night, like at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, so here's the thing about that. Like, somebody wrote in and asked the other day that, I wished that Disney Plus would drop it earlier like HBO does. But here's the thing. Disney does not drop their shows later than HBO. They drop their shows way earlier than HBO. So let's say both HBO and Disney Plus say the new episode of their show comes out on February, what's tomorrow? 23rd. Comes out on February 23rd, right? So, okay, both Disney Plus and HBO's new show, new episodes of their big shows are coming out on February 23rd. The difference is that Disney does not make you wait until later in the evening on February 23rd. They put it up immediately on February 23rd at 12:01 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So you're not getting the Disney Plus show 3 hours later. You're getting the Disney Plus show like 18 hours earlier, because the HBO show then waits until 9 p.m. that same day. That being said, I am with you that I do kind of wish Disney would release whether it's a day earlier or a day later, I do kind of wish Disney Plus would put it out at like 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 p.m. East Coast time. I do kind of wish they would do that. I do. Like, I don't mind staying up till midnight Pacific Standard Time to watch the new episode of Andor or whatever. But, so I don't mind the midnight release time, but I am with you. I think the best thing for them to do would be to release it at like a 7 p.m., a 6 p.m., an 8 p.m., something like that. All right. Let's see here. King Daddy Goat writes, thoughts on Infinity Pool? I was disappointed. It's bonkers, but I thought it was kind of cool. I mean, it's graphic and it's like intense and it's filthy, but yeah, I kind of dug it. All right. Quinn Udi writes, because of the fact that I'm always listening to your show, anytime I mention somebody famous where I'm from in a conversation, I always say, good Northern Californian kid. You're the best, John. You know what? I don't know. Do any of you guys just say yes or no in the live chat, just really quickly? Okay. Just write quick yes or no. So I know the answer, what you're thinking of this. Have any of you guys heard of Don Cherry? Just let me know if you guys have ever heard of Don Cherry. And I'll wait for a second to see some of the answers. Walrix is saying yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. A lot of no's. That's understandable because unless you're Canadian, you may not know. Okay. Don Cherry was an iconic, legendary hockey commentator. He was also the coach of the Boston Bruins. He was a longtime coach. And then he was this iconic co-host of Hockey Night in Canada for the longest time. Don Cherry, big loudmouth guy, whatever. But I remember when I was a kid, he would always say, good Albertan kid, good Saskatoon kid, good Canadian kid. And that just kind of stuck with me. And now whenever we're talking about somebody who happens to be Canadian, I always refer to them as good Canadian kid. So that's where that came from. I got it from Don Cherry, if anybody was ever wondering. All right. Chuck New 52 writes, do you think that Rockstar Games sees the success of The Last of Us on TV and will finally attempt to put Red Dead in live action? Thanks, and bring on the filthy. Maybe. Honestly, the story of Last of Us is better than the story of Red Dead Redemption. I'm not knocking Red Dead Redemption. It's got a good story. It does. I did a review of the cutscene of it. It's got a good story. It really does. But it's not as good as the Last of Us story. It is not as good as the Last of Us story. And as somebody just pointed out, we talked about this on the show the other day. Red Dead is not exclusive to Sony. Now, that may or may not matter. But one is not, they're not all alike, right? Just because one is a video game adaptation doesn't mean all the other video game adaptations can be as good. The story of Last of Us is really exceptional. But listen, I think with the success there, I think you're going to see more studios taking swings at video game franchises and maybe try to handle them a little bit more dramatically. All right. Sam Fisher writes, I still want to see that modern day Westeros fan film turned into a real show. I'm not sure I'm familiar with that. Westeros is turned into a constitutional monarchy with a parliament. Make it like In the Thick of It or West Wing. I am not familiar with whatever fan film this is. I don't know if you guys in the live chat know what we're talking about or know what Sam is talking about. I'm not familiar with this. Do me a favor, Sam, email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. And maybe if you've got a link to that, I'd be fascinated to see it. I like a good fan film. So yeah, send me a link to that if you've got that. All right. Joshua Logan writes, hey, John, if you checked out the new series on Apple Plus, Shrinking, Jason Segel and Harrison Ford at their best, a very fun show. I have not yet, but I'm going to soon because Anne got 2 episodes into it and then she stopped because she said, John, you're going to really like this show. So I'm going to wait for you to catch up. So sometime in the next couple of days, I'm going to get caught up on it. And then Anne and I will continue watching it together because Anne says she thinks it's really, really good and she thinks I'll like it. So Joshua, you and my wife are on the same wavelength. I am definitely going to check it out, but I haven't watched it yet. All right. Next up, Casey Mack writes, you know, it's funny. Chris actually mentioned the DARE program talking about Cocaine Bear. There is actually a poster for Cocaine Bear out there that has DARE on it. No way. Seriously? I'm not surprised. At this point, I'm not surprised. They have done such a good job. Look at my hair today, by the way. Like you can tell I'm at the end of the day when my hair is now all frazzled. But they have done such a terrific job promoting Cocaine Bear. They really have. Everything from their viral approach and everything. They have done such a... So you know what, KC, when you say that they already have a Cocaine Bear poster with DARE on it, I don't doubt it for a second. It totally sounds... It tracks. It totally tracks. All right. Next up, Moda Awesome writes, do you see Disney/Marvel canceling some projects that the trades announced but not Marvel announced? No. What I think we've seen them do instead is that they're stretching it out, right? And we've seen them already doing that. We've seen them take 2 or 3 of what were going to be the Disney Plus shows coming out this year, and they've pushed them into 2024, maybe even into 2025. So I don't think they're going to cancel those projects. What I think you're going to do is you're going to see the ones they've already announced and talked about. You're going to see those ones just moved out longer. So there'll be less per year. Still the same projects, but I think just probably less per year. This is a good question, Moto Awesome. All right, next up. Big Mouth Stan writes, do you agree that X-Men Days of Future Past, Logan, and X-Men 2 were the best X-Men movies? Yes, 100%. There was a long period of time when I think X-Men 2, X2 was the best comic book movie ever made for a period of time. I still think that is, if not a top 10, then absolutely a top 15 greatest comic book movie of all time is X-Men 2. And X-Men Days of Future Past is I think, a top 10 best comic book movie ever made. And Logan is a top 2 or 3. So yes, 100% agree that X-Men Days of Future Past, Logan, and X-Men 2 are the best X-Men movies made. All right. Josh, now that's understanding that I do not consider Deadpool to be an X-Men movie. But John, I know, I understand that, but I do not consider any of the Deadpool movies to be X-Men movies. The Deadpool 3 might be considered a Deadpool movie. It might be considered an X-Men movie, but not the other two. All right. Let's see here. Where are we at now? We are at Josh Logan, who writes, we've met Moon Knight. After Blade comes out, do you think we'll begin to meet more darker characters of the MCU, like Ghost Rider or even Mephisto? Thanks. Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people thought Mephisto was going to... By the way, Matt Corey sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Matt. A lot of people thought Mephisto was going to show up in WandaVision. And ever since, every new MCU thing that comes out, Mephisto, we'll probably meet Mephisto at some point. Ghost Rider... I'm not 100% sure. I would think probably, but it's going to upset some people because they're not going to do Ghost Rider rated R. They're not going to do Ghost Rider rated R. It's just, they won't. Just like Blade isn't going to be rated R. Kevin Feige was very, very clear that the only thing they're going to do rated R is Deadpool, and that's it. He was very, very clear about it. Now, somebody in the live chat, Affair just pointed out in the live chat that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had Ghost Rider. And that was, you know what, for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was a terrible show, by the way, for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Ghost Rider they had wasn't bad. I actually didn't mind Ghost Rider. You can now see him in The Last of Us, as a matter of fact. But maybe Ghost Rider, but it just won't be a rated R Ghost Rider, just as long as we're all, we're prepared for that. All right. Next up, we got Wesley Nokona writes, No question. Just keep up the good work and entertaining us daily. Love and peace. Oh, thank you. It's always nice when somebody wants to write something just to be supportive. Thank you, Wesley. I really appreciate that, man, especially here at the end of a long day. I really appreciate that, dude. Thank you. Next up, Big Mouth Stan writes, does winning an Oscar automatically make you one of the best actors in the world? No. Or does the quality of your films make you a top actor, or is it both? No, listen, look, winning an Oscar is a remarkably difficult thing to do. You can never win an Oscar and be one of the greatest actors of all time. Like, you can. But winning an Oscar, and by the way, winning an Oscar does not make you one of the great actors of all time. Look, what makes you one of the great actors of all time is your body of work. Does an Oscar help your resume when talking about your body of work? Absolutely it does. But if you, let's say, take Cuba Gooding Jr., right? I think Cuba Gooding Jr. is a very good actor. And I think that he deserved his Oscar that he won in that Tom Cruise, Renee Zellweger movie. What's the name of that damn movie? The You Complete Me movie, Show Me the Money. And anyway, Jerry Maguire. Thank you, Waltrox. Jerry Maguire. He totally deserved his Oscar for Jerry Maguire. Totally did. But that was by far the best performance of his life. And nothing else even really came close. So while Cuba Gooding Jr. has an Oscar, and he deserved it, his body of work over his career shows him to be a very good actor, but not in the conversation of one of the greats. Not in the top 50. Not in the top 50 greatest actors of all time. So no. But I mean, having an Oscar kills any argument you might have that that person's a terrible actor. Look, you can't win an Oscar if you're a terrible actor. Like, maybe they didn't put together a body of work that makes them one of the greatest actors of all time or anything. But if you won an Oscar, which is like one of the most difficult things in the world to think, you've lost any argument you try to have that that person's a bad actor. You automatically lose your argument. But it doesn't mean they're automatically one of the great actors of all time either. That to me is a question of complete body of work. A question of complete body of work. All right. With that, that looks like we got through all the questions, guys. I'm looking through now. I think every single one of the rest of them that we've got, I will go through these later. Again, my apologies for the fact that these got all mixed up in the YouTube system. I will go through a little bit later tonight just to clarify that I did get to all of them, but it looks like I got to all of them. So guys, thank you so much for joining me for this installment of Open Mic / Ask John Anything. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those super chats. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. And number two, you supported my channel as you did it. And all of us involved here with the John Campea Show, thank you guys so much for your support. Don't forget, guys, come on back and join us tomorrow for the newest episode of the John Campea Show. Definitely going to be talking. We got a number of big things already lined up, including the fact that, boom, we talked about it at the beginning of this video, DC and Warner Brothers is going to show us Flash like nearly 2 months early at Cinemacon this year. I am so stoked about that. I cannot wait. Anyway, lots of things for us to talk about tomorrow. Are you guys talking about the poll? We announced the poll results. It ended up being like 64% to 36% for Professor X compared to Picard. So a lot of Picards in there, even though we're not really a Star Trek channel. But anyway, guys, that'll do it for us for now. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.